On April 28, 2000, a Russian-Israeli diving instructor named Yuri Lipsky decided he would do a dive into a very well-known and very dangerous spot, which many experienced divers would never dare to do, and it would later be known they had good reasons for avoiding it. The Blue Hole is an infamous diving location located a few kilometers north of Dahab, Egypt. It's famous for free diving because it's easily accessible to most people who dived in the area, but it's reported to have the most diver fatalities in the entire world, and Yuri Lipsky would not be an exception. Yuri began his dive normally, taking a diving camera with him to record his journey, and for most of his descent, things seemed normal. However, it would soon turn to tragedy. Throughout the dive, Yuri neglected to check on his depth, and soon, he would become trapped. He rapidly began descending at almost 100 feet per minute. He tried inflating his buoyancy device to carry him up, but his body was too heavy, and he continued to sink. As he descended, the water pressure built and built, which would start to affect his lungs. Yuri began to suffer from a state known as nitrogen narcosis. This impairs mobility and puts the person into a drunken state. Within minutes, he was face down at the bottom of the sea at around 91 meters. Darkness shrouded Yuri as he hit the bottom, and soon he begins visibly panicking as the camera keeps on rolling. Yuri's frantic movement suggests that he is no longer wearing his oxygen regulator, and finally, at around 17:11, the camera abruptly cuts off. A week later, on May the 5th, the camera was recovered and turned back on. It took just 8 minutes for Yuri to go from swimming recreationally to falling victim to the Blue Hole's grasp. Yuri's death was linked to many things, neglecting to check on his depth, and mainly, only packing a single tank of normal oxygen. Yuri Lipsky's tale is a cautionary one on why you should always be careful when you are diving, and the footage that's been recovered is nothing but tragic. The Station was a well-known nightclub located in West Warwick, Rhode Island. It had existed for many years under different uses like restaurants or bars, but its existence would be cut short in an event which would never be forgotten by Rhode Island. On February the 20th, 2003, a band known as Great White was set to perform at the station. Already, there were problems out of the gate. The stadium's maximum capacity was 404 people, yet the final total was 462. The group began with their opening song named Desert Moon. The crowd raged and had a great time, yet one decision would take the lives of many who were there. The tour manager, Daniel Bishelli, began to set off pyrotechnics in the station. This immediately caused the acoustic foam on both sides of the drummer's alcove to catch fire. Within seconds, multiple sparks spread out, and the entire building was slowly taken by the flames. Smoke filled the area as the panic attendants tried to flee for their lives. The station had no sprinkler system present, leaving the structural integrity to not last. Many people were crushed and trampled in a mad dash for the exits, and 2 survivors claimed the bouncer was refusing to let people pass the stage door as they claimed it was only for the band. If this is true, many more people could have been spared the flames. One person was able to record the entire aftermath and successfully made it out alive. All in all, 100 people lost their lives in this tragedy, including the lead guitarist of Great White, Ty Longley. Eventually, a memorial park was created to honour the station nightclub and for those who died. On August 10th, 1984, 36-year-old James Jeb Cador and his passenger, Ronald Hugh Wilmond was flying from Granby, Colorado to the Jeffco airport. On their journey, which was captured by a VHS camcorder, the pair were flying normally for a while. However, this normalcy would not last. James had failed to take into account the rising terrain, the trees and the altitude. He was unable to climb away from the terrain as the plane continued to steadily approach it. He stalled the plane 3 times in a last-minute attempt to get away, but this would be futile as the plane flipped and crashed.
Damn, hang on, Ronnie!
Both James and Ronald lost their lives in this crash, and the wreck wouldn't be discovered until over 3 years later on August 23rd, 1987. The wreckage was discovered by backpackers, and the tape was so damaged that parts of it were hanging on the trees. It was eventually recovered and repaired by Colorado Deputy Sheriff Dale Wood, and on the 20th year of this accident, the Cadles allowed the footage to be shown to the general public, and that footage is what you are seeing. It's a sad but cautionary tale on why you should always plan your routes and journeys safely. Nevertheless, this tape captured a tragedy, and may Ron and James rest in peace. Ricardo Lopez was a reclusive and troubled man, born on January 14, 1975. He was described as easygoing but very introverted. Throughout his life he struggled with relationships, mainly with women, and he was diagnosed with Klinefelter syndrome. He had a job working for his brother's pest control business, but by the age of 17, he had become very reclusive and extremely obsessive. He buried himself away in celebrity gossip magazines and would obsess over many of the female stars, but with one of them, he would take it too far. In 1993, he became fixated on the Icelandic singer Björk, gathering all of the information that he could find on her, writing fantasies and diaries about her, one of which stated how he wishes he could have invented a time machine to go back in time and befriend her. He spoke of this infatuation to his family, and they were concerned and explained to him that it was unhealthy and he should find real love. However, 3 years later in 1996, Ricardo had a plan to make sure that Björk would remember him forever. On his birthday, he stopped his diary and began to record a video diary in his apartment.
My name is Ricardo Lopez. It is January 14th, 1996. Today's my birthday. I'm 21.
Björk at this time was dating the English jungle producer Goldie, which enraged Ricardo, and he wanted revenge. He recorded 11 tapes, in total at approximately 2 hours per tape. He began discussing his revenge plans, his obsessions with Björk, and his anger towards Goldie. Lopez set out plans to build a letter bomb which would be hidden in a hollowed out book which would activate when the cover was opened. He originally planned to fill it with tainted needles containing HIV, but he settled on sulfuric acid as this was more realistic for him to obtain. He built this bomb in just under 3 months, and in the early hours of September 22nd, 1996, he put his plan into motion. His final tape began with him going to the post office to mail the device to Björk's home in London. After returning home, he undressed, began shaving his head on camera. He then covered his face in red grease paint and began playing Björk's songs. When the song I Remember You finished, Ricardo looked directly at the camera and took his own life using a pistol. His body was discovered 4 days later with the tapes. After viewing the tapes, the police contacted Scotland Yard and the package was intercepted at a South London post office and was detonated safely. The whole event left Björk very shaken up, and it brings to light the seriousness of mental health and obsession which I'm sure many VTuber fans out there may know a thing or two about.